know you've all heard this before, so shut your ears if you want. Welcome to all to this Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, which, due to government advice to the public to practice social distancing, will be held virtually, with committee members and officers accessing the meeting from remote locations. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed subsequently. Please can you all ensure your phones are off or on silent? You would have received an electronic copy of the agenda on Tuesday, the 26th. The agenda can be viewed. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Right, that's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. It can be viewed on the Council's website. It just went blank and I thought I'd gone again. Members will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point, but I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chair, at all other times, please keep your cameras and mics switched off to help minimise background noise and interference and make the connection as safe as possible. Please don't use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Scrutiny will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. If any members wish to speak, to raise a point or question, can you please click on the hand, different to Skype, button at the top of the Teams window, and I will come to you in turn. Please don't use the IM messaging chat to enter questions or comments. I now ask the Scrutiny Officer to announce the name of all the councillors who are actually in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In attendance today we have Councillor Cheryl Green, Councillor Jane Gebby, Councillor John Spanswick, Councillor John Paul Blundell, Councillor Kay Rowlands, Councillor Nora Clark, Councillor Stuart Baldwin, Councillor Rod Shaw, Councillor Tim Thomas, Councillor Tom Gifford, Councillor Martin Jones. That's it, sorry. You're on mute, Chair.
Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Councillor Ross Penhale Thomas.
All right. Yes, I think you did say the last meeting you would be able to make it. Are there any declarations of interest? No, I take it from that then there are no declarations of interest. All right, we will move on now to item 3, which is the medium-term financial strategy, and I'll hand you back to Meryl to take us through the reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So today we've got one report in front of members. As members will be more than aware, over the last 2 weeks we've had the scrutiny of the budget, and previously to that the Budget Research and Evaluation Panel have been looking at the MTFS for this year. So attached to the appendices we have Appendix A, the final report of the Budget Research and Evaluation Panel, and Appendix B, the responses from the subject overview scrutiny committees in relation to Cabinet's draft budget proposals. And at 9, the recommendation, the committee is asked to determine whether it wishes to submit the recommendations outlined in Appendixes A and B to Cabinet on the 9th of February 2021 as part of the budget consultation process, subject to any modifications and amendments the committee decides are appropriate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Meryl. All right, it just remains me to ask now, are there any questions or comments or suggestions on this, the recommendations here in the report on Appendix A or B? Yes. Councillor Stuart Baldwin, over to you. Beg your pardon, I was looking at the wrong picture. It's Councillor John Paul Blundell, followed by Councillor John Spanswick. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No, it is on point 4, recommendation 4. The committee is recommended about BREP. go into corporate overview and scrutiny. I know we discussed this as chairs, or briefly, because I brought it up. I was wondering, is this something that full council, because obviously we'll be discussing, because corporate overview and scrutiny and BREP are the same committee, and those members who raise concerns about the BREP process aren't members of this committee, and so may not feel that their voices are going to be heard on this matter. Should this be something that's reported to full council for discussion on what BREP is meant to be, and so we have a full council approach on that? Thank you.
Thank you for that, John Paul. I'm sure Meryl would have some points to make on this one. Meryl?
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendation is asking that the CMB and Cabinet review the role and purpose of BREP. And the BREP is a panel of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, sort of a subcommittee, if you like, constitutionally. So the process should be that if these recommendations go ahead, they will be reported to Cabinet on the 9th of February, and Cabinet will respond to all of the recommendations to COSC, and that's the proper process then, really, constitutionally, I was going to say, Chair.
Thank you for that, Meryl. Yes, I mean, there is absolutely nothing stopping Cabinet referring it to Council, is there?
That would be a matter for Cabinet, yes.
Yeah, well, perhaps, John Paul, you know, unless everybody is not in favour, that could be added, and we recommend that Cabinet refers it to Council. Would that?
Sorry,
yeah.
Chair, I would suggest that you await the response and then decide on the course of action then, really,
Okay.
rather than predetermine it. That would be my recommendation to you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Meryl. Are you happy with that, John Paul, that, you know, we wait to see what Cabinet's response is, and if we're not happy, we can pick it up again and run with it. Bear in mind, it is very early now in the new financial year, that we'd have time to do something.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that all members who have raised concerns have those concerns heard. That was all. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine, John Paul. Okay, thank you. John Spanswick. All right, John.
Yeah, morning. Thank you, Chair. It's a general point, and it's something that was came out of the woodwork last week about consultants when we were talking about Com1. And Councillor Williams raised the fact that we have spent as Council £22,000 on consultants to look at Newbridge Fields, Icedig Park, and also includes the Planker and Antibol, 3 sites. And the more I look at it, the more I'm concerned about, and this may be one for future scrutiny, or maybe one a recommendation now, I'm not sure. It's what are we spending on consultants because we've cut back so much on service areas? It's the long-term impact. Parks and the green spaces is just one example, but it's going on elsewhere. We're now spending at the moment £20,000 to do to look at 3 sites, to work out costs and to work with sports clubs, which in theory many years ago the department would and should have done. And we were told last week in one of the scrutiny meetings at one point by Zach that they had costs per site. Then when it was drilled down to, it didn't have cost per site. There was an average cost across all sites. And if you're telling clubs you either take this on or you've paid the cost of maintenance, you can't then ask them to pay the average cost of maintenance. They should be paying. So it's a bit of a mess behind the scenes, exactly cost-wise, what's going on. Now we got consultants in looking at 3 sites. But also 2.5 years ago, I was interviewed by another set of consultants called People 2 as scrutiny chair. And as far as I'm aware, those consultants are still in Bridgend now. So what I'm trying to say is that we can't get to the bottom. I know Councillor Williams have had response, as far as I'm aware, of Jill Lewis saying it's complicated to work out the cost of consultants because of the definition, who's a consultant, who's in an agency. And so due to the cuts of the last 10 years on austerity, we've made cuts in areas, not really looked at the long-term impact, and we still don't really know now what are we spending on consultants to make up for the cuts that we've made. It's a chicken and egg situation. but we should, and the council should have an idea of what are we spending on consultants because we cut back service areas to the point they're no longer resilient.
Thank you.
Long ramble, but I'm not sure where's the best way to get the bottom.
No, I think you made a very good point, and you're absolutely spot on. It is Scrutiny's role to explore whether or not consultants are actually offering best value for money, or would it be better off in-house? I think that is a point very well made. I'll ask Meryl now if she wishes to comment on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So I'm not sure if Councillor Spanswick is asking to make a recommendation now and add it to the ones that you've got from the committees to go forward to Cabinet, or are you looking to add it to the work programme to look at more generally?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I think I'm conscious of the fact that Mark Shepherd have written to us all saying officers are under pressure not to create extra work, and I think Jill has sort of said that in her email. It will take a lot of work to come up with the figures of what are consultants. So maybe it's a future work programme, but it doesn't. It needs to be over the next years before we get into next year's budget. And my worry is there's consultants there now, as I say, people too have been there for at least 3 years. So I dread to think what we're spending on them.
Is it something that the Brett could look at? Perhaps you could make a recommendation.
It could be, but then as long as we don't get accused that Brett knows about it and nobody else knows about it, and I mean, so it needs to be.
Do you want to make a statement in the recommendations that are going forward from today, saying that the committee is concerned about the costs of contractors? I think that we've got the wording down from what you said earlier because of the savings made over the years and the service cutbacks, which wouldn't have been necessary, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that all councils should be aware of what we're spending on consultants because we haven't got the in-house capacity to do things anymore, and that needs to be flushed out over the coming year.
Well, I think, John, what we're saying here, and I'm sure nobody's gainsaid this, is actually that we want to make this, add the statement in to say that the committee has concerns, and also to put it on the forward work programme for Scrutiny to look at it in depth. Yeah,
I'd be happy with that. If everybody else is.
If everybody else is happy, I've only got one hand at the moment, which is Councillor Gebby, but that was up before, so I think nobody has actually indicated on. Martin, did you want to speak on this?
I think he's struggling to join the meeting, Chair.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Chair, I do want to speak. It's not a legacy.
I know you want to speak, Jane.
All right.
I got your hand here, no problem, but I was wondering if anybody wanted to speak on John's particular point, that's all. I've definitely got you down next. Sorry, Mark. Right, I think he's in the meeting now. Okay, over to you then, Jane.
Bloody things, you can't actually do everything, and everything's all over the place. Right. I know. Sorry, and I am sorry for the confusion. I thought you were going on to somebody else, and I'm thinking my hand out for that.
No problem.
And it's all new. Right, apologies. If I can take colleagues to 1.19, recommendation 5. We're talking about schools and what we're going to do about saving costs, but nowhere in there does it mention carbon neutral. Nowhere in it does it mention our green policy, which is actually part of council policy now. And surely that's a spend to save. I don't understand why we haven't got that referenced anywhere. It doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jane. Meryl, did you have anything on that particular point? I think, it's a good point.
Just to ask for clarification, are we making an additional recommendation on that point, Chair?
Yeah. Jane, did you want to actually
I think
1.19?
I think it should actually be included in that brief. If we have committed as a full council to a carbon neutral green policy, why is that policy not referenced in any of our recommendations? Because at the minute it isn't.
Yeah, I'm quite happy for that to be included. No one has indicated otherwise. As somebody who's very keen on the council becoming as green and carbon neutral as possible, I would definitely be happy for that to be included. Okay, Meryl?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Right, Martin, you've indicated to come in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I first of all apologise for being a little bit late? I wasn't looking at that Microsoft Teams. I was looking at Skype. I was getting very frustrated, but when I found out it was Microsoft Teams, I was able to access it quite comfortably. So please apologise for being a bit late. If I may, I'd just like to go back to some of the points which Councillor John Spanswick has mentioned about prioritisation within the authority. I'm going to pin my colours to the mast here. I was disappointed with Mark Shepherd's email because what will we have here? What are the priorities for the authority? And it should be a corporate approach. Members, cabinet, corporate management board, we should all be on the same hymn sheet as to what the priorities are. I mean, we talk about this one council approach time and time again, but let's talk about the priorities, agree the priorities, and then look at the pressures on the authority. We seem to be going backwards if that makes any sense. And I totally accept, and I had conversations with Jill Lewis about this. I totally accept there are pressures within the authority. I get it. But let's not forget there are incredible pressures out in communities. And that's what we're here to serve. So going back to some of the things what John has said, it's all about prioritising. What are the priorities for this authority? Let's agree them and let's work to them. Because at the moment, I think we're just going off on one. We really are, and it's causing acrimony. I hope that makes sense to everyone.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Martin. Would you like that included as a general comment to accompany the recommendations?
Yes, I think we should perhaps consider embracing the concept of prioritisation. We do. However, prioritisation should be a corporate matter. It should not be officer-led. It should be a corporate matter, and it should be based on what the needs are for our communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it's a political, it's a political stance, isn't it? Basically, it's a policy as opposed to operational. So yes, it should be led by members.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've got no problem with that, and I've got Councillor Stuart Blundell indicating now. Stuart.
I know I've had COVID, Cheryl, but it didn't change my name to Blundell. It's okay, don't. Just a little bit of light relief. I've got a bit of looking at recommendation 3, when it says the panel recommends that all directorates identify all COVID-19 related costs and budgetary pressures, and in particular ensures there is full cost recovery where appropriate from Welsh Government. I recognise that They could be, but there are going to be situations where full cost recovery just isn't going to be an option. And I don't want our directorates to be hung up on the fact. The whole thing around BREP and the stuff that we've been looking at from the COVID panel is recognising where some things will need to be commissioned or decommissioned, change the way that we procure the processes to be able to deal with it, and what needs to change as an impact of COVID-19. So I don't, obviously the recommendation 1 where we talk about the plans and their bespoke plans, I'd want to be seeing it's not an amalgamation of the 2 recommendations, but it's just about being clear. As we move forward with BREP, I want the directorates to identify the particular pressures rather than us having to go through absolutely everything line by line. I'd rather be taking it from an exceptions point of view, but I don't want us to be, I wanted to look at it from what is a pressure, but then what is the added pressure, and what is the added pressure from COVID-19, but not that it's used to try and claim that money from Welsh Government, because we will be changing services at a Bridgend level that are a result of COVID-19 that aren't full cost recovery. And I don't know what other members think about that, whether they agree or not.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. My apologies for getting your name wrong. Nobody else has indicated at the moment. Has anybody got anything they wish to add to what Councillor Baldwin has just said? I think Stuart does make a strong point that COVID is going to change a lot in the future, and we have to be mindful of that. Meryl, did you want to comment on it, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, are we, from Councillor Baldwin's point, is that proposed as an extra recommendation from today, or is that something they want to be picked up in the BREP when you have your first meeting?
Meryl, I don't think it's an extra recommendation.
No.
I just think it's a clarity point in relation to recommendation 2 and 3, so that it's recognising that we know what the pressures and also I don't know how the rest of scrutiny and corporate scrutiny feel about this. I'm fed up of hearing people talk about savings when we know that having to put council tax up by 3.9% is not a saving. We are having to deal with cuts. And that's the one thing, again, that I would want to come forward when directorates are coming forward. There will be some savings, and I want those identified as savings, but I want actual cuts to be identified as cuts, where we are cutting that service because we have no other choice. Let's stop sugarcoating the fact that it's a saving, because if it was a saving, there's many of us here that would be choosing not to make that saving. So I want a clear differentiation between savings and cuts, and I want the clear differentiation between the fact that what is coming forward as a budget pressure, but then what is the impact of COVID in relation to that, because we're going to see those pressures irrespective of COVID. And we do know that there have been some incidents where COVID has meant that there is less of a pressure on that budget because things haven't happened. So I think those are just the ways that we need to have clarity in relation to the steps from those, the facts, what are cuts, what are savings, and then what is COVID related or not. If that makes sense, Meryl.
I think, Stuart, what I took from what you said is that you wanted BREP to be particularly vigorous in identifying what is a cut, what is a saving, etc., and to actually ensure that next year's budget, we see it actually clearly stated in the budget proposals what exactly it means.
Totally, because I think we use far too generic a language, and the thing is, none of us came into politics to make these decisions around having to put council tax up and cut services. And I think that when we're reiterating this to the public, they need to fully understand that I don't want council tax to go up by 3.9%, but it's going up by 3.9%, or if it's voted on, I should say, it's because we're having a cut in relation to our revenue support grant that's coming from Welsh Government, and the money that comes from Westminster. So let's just be very clear around the fact that we don't want to make these decisions, but if council tax is going up, as it is, to at least to maintain some of the levels of services that people expect to have. So I totally accept, thank you, Cheryl. Yes, clarity in relation to what is a cut and what is a saving. And officers need to accept the fact that we as councillors don't want to use the word savings, whether that is the accepted terminology from a Section 151 officer point of view.
Yeah, that's fine, but I don't think that nobody's indicated. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with making the process more transparent and more understandable for members of the public. And yeah, I agree. The vocabulary used should be very clear to the public and to us. Thank you very much, Stuart, for that. I've got no one else actually indicating at this moment in time. I've only got a legacy hand from you, Stuart. Meryl wishes to come in, I believe.
No, Chair, I think I'm just clicking on something else.
Right, well, it only remains for me then to ask if there are no further comments, questions, suggestions. If I could take members to the recommendations on page 5. We have submitted further suggestions for recommendations which have been agreed and no one has disagreed. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Move.
Second.
Second.
Sorry, Chair, if you don't mind, just to butt in quickly on recommendation 5, considering we've used the word savings, I just want to make sure that we fully understand, because it talks about to establish whether there are cost savings in overall revenue costs for schools. Again, we know that whether it's cost savings stroke cuts on that one, so that we fully understand what that situation is. Yeah. We may as well make the change on the current recommendations, but otherwise I have nothing else.
That's fine. I'm sure that can be easily done. Meryl?
Yes, Chair, that's fine.
That can be clarified, no problem. Well, in that case, there are no urgent items. We've concluded agenda item 3. Can I thank you all very much for your attendance and questions this morning, and wish you all not a safe journey home as usual, but keep safe, and I look forward to when we can actually be in the chamber once more. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to see you.